Hello, and welcome to Chaotic Creatives, a show about embracing the chaos that comes from living a creative life.
We are your hosts, two self-proclaimed chaotic creative gals. I'm Rachael Renee, your internet hype gal. I am all about encouraging you to live a creative and confident life.
And I am Lauren Hom. I am a designer, letterer, muralist, and most recently, culinary school graduate, so chef.
Chef, yes, chef. I just finished watching season 3 of The Bear. And by finished, I mean start and finished in one sitting.
Good for you.
Thank you.
That's the way I like to, I feel like that's a very chaotic creative trait, is to binge.
Yeah, like hyperfixation. It's like, I am committing to this right now. It was so good.
It feels good to have the laser focus, though. Like, even if you spent the whole day, I don't know how long it was, but like, you were on one topic and...
I think it was like 5 hours.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, and I was sick.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a lot of energy.
Perfect.
I got up and ate snacks. And
I heard it was great. I haven't started it yet because I've just been all over the place in other ways.
Understandable. You haven't started the show at all?
Not season 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You're caught up. You watched 2, though?
Yes.
Okay. Oh,
of course.
Okay.
It's weird seeing content about it now, even though I haven't watched it, because I follow a lot of like food Instagram people. Everyone's talking about the chocolate cake from season 3. No?
Here's another thing about being ADHD chaotic creative who binge watches shows. It's already gone out of my brain. I really enjoyed it, but the chocolate cake. Okay, let me think about it.
Oh, I saw someone making a chocolate cake from The Bear. Unless I misread the caption.
I think that there was a chocolate cake in one of the previous seasons, maybe, that you could also get at a real restaurant in Chicago. Is that right?
Maybe it was one of the desserts that Marcus made. I can't remember now.
Okay. It doesn't matter. Anyway, it was great. Would I eat chocolate cake? 100%. Yeah. I took Livernois to get here because I stopped at the ceramic studio, and we will get to our topic. I passed Good Cakes and Bakes, and
I don't know what that is.
Oh, okay. It's a queer-owned bakery in Detroit.
Awesome.
And their cake is great. And I almost was like, should I stop and get us all a slice of cake? And then I was already late, so I did not. But please accept the thought of me doing that as thoughtfulness.
Accepted.
Okay, Lauren, what are we talking about today now that I got us fully derailed?
Great. Today we are not talking about cake. We are talking about building a personal brand, but like not in the icky way. We got a question, right, from someone who follows the Chaotic Creatives Instagram. Do you remember what exactly it was?
Yeah, it was Jen. Thanks, Jen, for this question. And they asked how to add other creative projects without it sort of, I'm paraphrasing because my phone is recording, where the question is living. How to add creative projects without sort of diluting your brand or keeping it all under sort of the
One
same
umbrella.
Yeah.
Which is basically what a personal brand is. I think whether or not you like cringe at the term or fully embrace it, it is a part of having to live someone on the internet for all of us. Like, even if you are not an influencer or use social media for work per se, I mean, we all heard it coming out of college, like, make sure you don't have any like partying photos on your Facebook or whatever. I remember there was an app that like, gosh, this is so like 2012. Apparently, like, it was an app where you could upload you like type in your Facebook URL or something, and it would export all of your Facebook photos, but with cats photoshopped over the beer in your hand. So you weren't...
Incredible.
You couldn't see the like party.
Back when technology did us good.
But regardless of how people feel, we all are cultivating some kind of online persona. And whether that's like LinkedIn or pick your poison, right? And I think that it is valid to think about, especially if you're trying to leverage any of the internet to be part of your career or like livelihood. It's a part of it.
Yeah.
You get to choose, like, you are in the driver's seat. You get to choose what you highlight and what parts of your life you share. But I think as it pertains to creatives, artists, designers, makers, your personal brand is super important. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we as chaotic creatives love to add different creative projects
Yeah.
under our umbrella. And so it is challenging, like Jen is asking about, because it's hard, I think, at least for me personally, to not dilute the things that I do really want to focus on with things I'm excited about.
Ooh.
And so, especially for me, my personal brand is me. Like Rachael Renee is me, and I'm her. and when I built my following and sort of my internet community, it's about my life.
Yep.
And it started about my clothes and expanded to include my life. So I feel like I walk that line often of like, okay, I want to share this thing, but if it's not actually contributing to like the community engagement or a product that I'm promoting or a project that aligns with sort of the values that I want to share, maybe it's not the best place to post it. I don't have like a burner Instagram because I'm already on Instagram too much. I'm not trying to like make my friends follow me so that I can post my food. I'll just not.
Yeah, for your like runoff content of like stuff that doesn't make it to the main.
Totally.
It's too much work. Because even an account like that is curating another part of your persona.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for me, I can talk about my experience from the sense of like personal brand as human and not designer. And then maybe you can share your perspective if that works for you. Okay. So I started my Instagram by doing style challenges, talked about personal style, talked about dressing for yourself and like confidence building through style, using style and clothes as tools for creative expression. And for me, clothes are one facet of my creativity, but I don't think that I necessarily was making that clear to my audience. So people came to my page to, get style inspiration, to ask where I bought stuff. And what I would have rather been the message that was received was, you can use clothes to build your confidence and you can use clothes as a creative tool. And so I started shifting my messaging, still posting a lot of the same stuff, but talking about it in this bigger umbrella of creative play. And so I think to answer the question of how do you add them, I think you kind of do have to niche a little bit, niche for now, like we talked about in a previous episode. But of course you can add something. It just has to be intentional and still aligned with like your personal brand or your brand values. If it's not a personal brand, like if it's your creative business, what do you think about that?
Yeah, totally. Because even if you don't share much of your life online as a designer or artist or maker, I think that you still come through the work a lot of times, even the voice writing the caption. And because of that, it's like, I like what you said about not wanting to share anything and everything that might dilute like your message, because you have honed in on like a general message of like, does this relate to building confidence and creativity? If not, then maybe you just like let it be. It's like what we talked about at the end of our last recording session off camera and off mic about, even if my general read is like, if you feel like sharing something, share it. It's inconsequential. I think we've been on the internet for long enough now, like in our adult years, that oftentimes you can get into like a mind trap of like, should I share it? Should I not share it? And then it's exhausting. And it's like, you should have just posted it and like let it be.
Yeah.
You either do it. What's the phrase? Shit or get off the pot?
Yeah. I believe this is the 4th consecutive episode that we've mentioned shit.
True.
I love that.
Waiting for that bidet sponsorship.
Yeah. The
toilet paper
who
sponsorship.
Gives a crap. Yeah. Yep. Sponsor us.
Yep. Benefiber.
Yeah. We'll take it all. Metamucil.
Yes. Perfect. So we were talking about, even if it's something silly that might not relate to your business or what you're trying to promote, there is a very like conventional marketing framework that's all about know, like, trust that we talked about. And it's basically, those are the 3 pillars that in any marketing scenario, I didn't even learn this in school. I learned this like on the internet 10 years ago. But in any marketing scenario, you want to think of it in these 3 categories where you want people to get to know about your business, right? And know your offers. And the other part is like, where it's like the person behind it or the brand. That's where the personal brand comes in, is maybe it is silly photos of your cat or what you are eating for breakfast that have nothing to do with your business. But that's part of the like factor, where you get to show off like a little bit of you, which is where behind the scenes and some personal stuff comes in.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the trust part, where that's where you might be sharing things like customer testimonials or things that build trust in your services or product. Maybe it's behind the scenes if you're an illustrator or a letterer, on like how you create your artwork. And so people are like, oh, that's how it's done. Or like, here are the 5 steps you need to commission a mural or something like that. And I think a lot of the personal brand stuff can fall into the like category. And so if anyone's ever, I think a lot of us are in this place where if you feel weird about social media and you're not sure what to share anymore, if you feel like sharing anything, share it.
Yeah.
It's better than nothing.
Yeah. And I think one thing that I agree with you, just like share it if you're inspired to share it, because truly that authenticity does come through, I think.
Yes. You can tell when someone's excited about something, or even the stuff you find funny that might be off-putting to some other people, or maybe other people won't get it, but there is a core group, what you consider, like you've mentioned it, your perfect people. Those people want to see that.
Yeah.
Like there are plenty of people who don't care about like a cat, for example, but there are plenty of people who do.
Yeah.
And that's not going to be the thing that makes or breaks your business.
And I think that finding what your Venn diagram of you and your brand and your content is it can be broad. Like, I think you're right. Like some people might think of me as like style, cats, nachos. A lot of people send me nacho content. Love that. Thank you so much for seeing me.
Yeah.
And I think it's all about being consistent. Like if you are a florist and then you decide you want to try hand lettering, and all of your photos were you designing florals, you talking to the camera, final photos of your pieces, and then all of a sudden it was hand lettering. And then a month later you decide that your hobby is working out, I don't know, or you decide that you want to start doing home renovations, whatever. All of those are you. Those are valid, multifaceted interests. But I think it's important to identify where it fits into your personal brand and be consistent. So like if you're doing a switch from florals to hand lettering, maybe stick with it for 30 days. Make a bunch of work and niche for now so that people get used to seeing that content for you. If we're talking about like adding creative outlets to your personal brand on the internet, which is like a very niche subject, I guess. But I think like when I'm thinking of maybe professionals, if I saw you all of a sudden start posting like gym workout videos, I might be like, oh, that is a change, but good for her. If you were consistent about it, my mindset would shift very quickly. We are very adaptable, like stretchy brain humans, right? And I think it's the consistency and the intentionality. Like if it's what's lighting you up right now, great, talk about it, but be consistent and show us how it fits under your umbrella of your personal brand values. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Okay. And I mean, before we started recording, I think we came to the conclusion too that there is no one size fits all answer to this question.
Yeah.
Like the more different things you do and feel like sharing or publishing on the internet, no matter where that is, it could be in your portfolio, it could be on your Instagram. The more stuff you do, the more like, it's more of like a trail mix of things, right? You're adding more to the mix where sure, it can become more confusing for like a new customer or someone who's just stumbling across you to be like, what does this person do? They do all these different things. But it's up to you to figure out, does it bring you joy to do all these things? And are you okay with having more of like a mixed bag offering versus, and then you might appeal to more people that way too, if you do lots of things. It's also more to manage and more to be consistent about or update. And sometimes there's one-off stuff, but maybe there was a time in my life where the specificity and container of just being a letterer felt really cozy and nice and snug. I'm going to use a cat analogy because you have cats. It's kind of like how cats love cat beds or spaces that are too small for them, where they're like curled up in there and they're like a little snug. If it feels good to have a niche, roll with it until you outgrow it and until it doesn't feel good anymore. Because I think on the extremities, right? A niche, one thing can feel very stifling, and then you get some creative angst, and then the chaos bubbles up, and you might break out of that mold or do a full pivot. On the other hand, like what you were saying with, do I share this or do I not share this? How is it related? When you're a chaotic creative and you have a lot of interests, you can be all over the place in a way that's no longer helpful to you. Like, we are adults and we do have to find some focus, even to just finish a project.
Yeah.
Whether that's a quilt or a mug. And I think seeing a thing through is always very gratifying. So it's really a trade-off. I don't think it's better to be one thing or to have multiple interests. It's whatever feels right to you. And I thought I was going to be just a letterer for a long time until I started to want to incorporate other things. Once you start to feel that itch of like, I want to try something else, usually what happens for me is it starts as a hobby and then I do it for a little bit to see how it feels. And if I like it enough, then I might integrate it into what I'm sharing online and what I'm trying to promote and attach to my name. Because you're right, what we share, what we talk about is how people will know us. And that's,
Yeah. And I think what you do really well is, you're adding these different creative things, but you've incorporated so many elements of yourself and your style of design into them, like our new mural.
Oh, yeah.
If you're watching the video, exciting. Lauren just posted a mural. Is that what's, yes.
Yeah, it is a papaya.
Sorry.
Yes. I hosted my very first in-person mural painting workshop in here, and
I love it.
They did such a good job. But you are correct in saying that, like, even the mural getting swapped out, it's in like we designed it. It's still within a realm that,
as in Lauren and Kristle, not me. I had nothing to do with it.
Kristle and I designed it. Rachael is sitting in front of it.
I'm modeling it. And
I think, obviously, I enjoy more in life, right? There's more to me than just design and food, right?
Yeah.
But I think inadvertently, this was not like a plan that I had 10 years ago when I started my business. These are just the topics, like creativity and food are two topics that I find myself coming back to again and again in my personal life. Like when I'm alone, especially living alone now, I'm just like, oh, this is what I do in my spare time. Like I make art and I cook.
Yeah.
Sometimes together. And because I have, like, those are two of my strongest interests, I think that has just been a natural way to like niche a bit, where no matter what the medium I'm working in, it's probably going to be food related. Or even if it's not food related, people are not surprised when they see that because I've been talking about it for 10 years. Whereas, if I posted gym content, it would probably take a little bit longer for people to acclimate to that. And the gap between, there's probably a relationship between gym content and food content, but the food stuff that I talk about is about pleasure and enjoyment, not about nutrition. So that might be a bigger jump.
Yeah. Oh, man. I'm just like thinking of examples of people that I've followed where they've shifted, but I'm going to talk more about myself.
Do it. This is your podcast.
I think what's important and what I was trying to do very intentionally is change the messaging without changing what I was posting. So I was still following my fun of getting dressed and making quilts, making mugs, doing the creative things that I was already doing. And I shared sort of my creative projects as the like and trust pillars, right? Like learn more about me in my personal life. But people responded to that. And I really liked working on that stuff and sharing it. And so I kept thinking like, okay, this is stifling. My cat bed is too small. How do I expand and still have it feel really good? And what that was for me was changing the messaging. Now my content is quite a bit different. I don't do like get ready with me videos every day like I used to. But it took some time for people to kind of get used to that.
Totally.
And I remember the first time I saw somebody in person and they were like, prioritize play. And I was like, yes, okay. So me harping on this thing over and over again to basically expand my umbrella to be larger and incorporate more of who I am is working. And that's how people see me now. And I think if I start to feel stifled by this, and I kind of am right now using the play message, and I think because it doesn't immediately resonate with people, like playing does, absolutely. But I think perhaps it might come across as me saying, abandon responsibilities and play instead. And what I mean is follow your own fun, prioritize your own creativity, and you can find what lights you up by playing. Like play is a tool. It's a strategy to use to find the things that can be very fulfilling in your life, which is a mouthful and hard to, I guess, share in a short little quip. So that's why I went with prioritize play. But I'm kind of noodling on, do I want to change how I message this? Because I have a Dress for Yourself course. And really what I'm trying to share is that I want people to live for themselves. I'm demonstrating that with my life. I'm living in a way that is perfectly curated to me. And I want to encourage other people to do that through confidence and their creativity. So do I change my messaging to like live for yourself? But then is that too like, I don't know, sport motivational in the realm of that? I don't know. So yeah, I think like when you feel like you are feeling trapped, not trapped. I don't feel trapped. Maybe a little bit stifled by the messaging that you've used or the creative umbrella that you're using. How can you take a step beyond that to kind of expand instead of completely pivot? How can you say in your Instagram bio, instead of like enthusiastic style gal, which is what mine was, like helping you get dressed with color and I don't know, patterns or something. I don't remember what it used to be. And now it says gabbing about play, hyping you in confidence and creativity, which is still the umbrella of what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Does all that make sense?
Yes.
I feel like I talked, a lot of circles there.
That's fine. It's completely fine.
You're used to it.
I think this is a testament. I mean, obviously both of us love to talk in circles, but it's a testament to how like tricky this topic is. And there is no easy answer because when you're creative, so much of yourself is in your work.
Yeah.
Even when you try to remove yourself from your work, the thing that I'm thinking about is like street artists who conceal their identity, like a Banksy or something. That's maybe an extreme of like, you're not like, maybe like it goes so far where it's like the mystique becomes the persona. But most of us don't operate that way and don't want to operate that way. Like, I think a lot of us who built audiences on social media where we incorporated some of our personality were just, maybe it's like our age where like we got on the internet at a time where you're like, I want people to know who I am. Like you're a teenager when you got like MySpace or Facebook. And I think some people, it feels more comfortable to share more of yourself online than others. And it's a really choose your own adventure kind of thing. There are so many benefits to sharing some bits of your personal life and your personality on your Instagram or through your social media. But if it doesn't feel good, don't do it. Just share your work. And I think to Jen's question, I make work and projects that first and foremost, like you were saying with your message, are exciting and fun for me. And that is the first, that's the priority. And then I share them online. And if they resonate with people, great. Like there was a year where when I was traveling the world, I did a travel project. I haven't done one in a long time because I haven't traveled like that in a while. And just because I incorporated that for a year doesn't mean it's forever. Wow. It is like the niche for now thing. It is like the niche for now framework that I teach is just you find a thing that resonates with you and seems to resonate with other people, whether that is a topic, a medium, a skill, and you use that as your jumping off point to then continue to build that skill or operate around that realm. And then you incorporate one new thing a year. And it's almost like you're trying it on for a year, and maybe a year is too long if someone's being like, that's way too long. Maybe it's 6 months. Maybe it's a month.
I mean, it could be like a 30-day challenge.
Totally.
You know, you're building a skill set. Maybe you're traveling for a month. You're taking a sabbatical from your job. And if you're doing a drawing every day for the month that you're traveling, that's an entire body of work. And if you're sharing consistently and intentionally about that thing, it's people getting to connect with you on that creative project. So what I think, whatever the time frame is, like, incorporate something, but be intentional about it.
Yeah, totally. Or I even think about even some silly stuff, like things that aren't traditionally considered marketing. A good example is a couple years ago when everyone was watching, when it came out on, I think it was HBO, about The Last of Us, that like mushroom end of the world thing. I remember watching it, and which is surprising for me because it's like way too dark for what I would typically watch.
I was a late adopter because I was like, is this spooky?
Yeah,
but then people were like,
spooky.
no, it's not. It's
like
the
a good
way
story.
It's
still a little too spooky for me.
It was the perfect amount of spooky for me. Yeah.
There's some stuff I wish I could unsee.
Sure.
But I can't.
Related to humans, though?
What?
Not monsters. Like human behavior.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's mostly the monsters, like visually.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. Okay.
But this interior designer that I like, DeBito, he had posted in a story about one of the episodes, and I responded to it because I was like, oh my God, like I loved this one too. And it's completely unrelated to his normal interior design content. Maybe like the TV was styled nicely. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the thing you feel called to share, or like if you would text it to your group text being like, did anyone see this? Or I'm so excited about this. You never know when those are like little signals. They're points of connection that you're opening up. Anything you share in your story, on your feed, it's offering people information that they can then respond to. And so I responded to his story. I was like, oh my God, I love that episode. He followed me back and messaged me back and invited me to his book launch party the next year. And like we connected that way, and like our professions overlap enough where maybe we'll collaborate someday.
Yeah.
Who knows? But it's like what we were talking about. Did we talk about this in the last episode with the networking?
Yeah.
Think of professional development and networking as making friends.
Yeah.
That is the easiest, like chillest way to look at it, where you're not going to like show up with weird energy.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, look for opportunities to connect with other people and give people opportunities to connect with you.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, I mean, if something you post that you're excited about is so offensive to someone else, they can leave. And that's actually a good thing. It's like a filtration thing.
They're not your perfect people.
Yeah. The analogy I've always used, this is the first time I gave a presentation and I got like a big laugh from the crowd, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Again, feedback.
Mm-hmm.
The analogy I use is you want to think about it like if someone unfollows you, it's like your least favorite thing in the bag of trail mix is like showing itself out. You could think about people who unfollow you as like the raisins that you didn't want anyways.
Yeah.
And you're like, great, I wish they were cranberries, or I wish they were chocolate chips.
Yeah.
I think that giving people information about yourself, I think a lot of what we talk about is all framing too. If you feel weird about, if you're like, oh, I kind of want to share myself online, but I don't know what to share. It's whatever you feel, whatever you're excited about, someone else is excited about too. And maybe someone isn't, but most of the time people will just scroll on by. Mm-hmm. It's not a big deal, but it does give people who are on the same wavelength some reason to contact you or engage with you. Even if it's like someone who follows you who's like, oh, Rachael and I have the same pants, or like Rachael likes the same, like Rachael loves oysters, I love oysters. Mm-hmm. Like it's little stuff like that it's exactly how you build connection with someone in person. Like when Kristle and I first started working together and we had whatever is the closest thing to an interview. It wasn't really an interview. I was like, I'm just going to hire you for the summer. But we met for coffee as like a little meet before like we committed to anything. And I found out she was vegetarian and I was like, oh, easy. This is like, it has nothing to do with our professional lives, but it's a connection point that makes you feel like makes you trust somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that makes you feel closer to them, or maybe that you would want to work with them or purchase from them in the future. These things totally matter.
I think this is a perfect example of why there is enough room for everyone's art in the world, because even if you and another person were making the exact same artwork, if I'm resonating more with what you share as a person because we have the same sense of humor or like we like the same food, you're going to be more drawn, or I'm going to be more drawn to you in this analogy. I'm like, who's who in the analogy? And I think absolutely it's about connection. Like we are all looking for connection ultimately. And yes, inspiration, and yes, education online, but really it's connection. Like I truly talk about my Instagram audience, I say that in air quotes, as a community, because we have rapport. There are people that I talk to that have become my in real life friends, or there are people that I talk to that I probably will never meet in real life, but we chat about things. And for some people, yeah, it might be the oysters. For some people, it's quilting. It's learning about people, and like you said, like networking, but it's making friends.
Yeah, it reminds me of when you said that people will send you like nacho content all the time. It gives people a reason to like think of you. And
which is amazing.
That's marketing in and of itself. Like it's not in a nefarious way. It's just like you want to be top of mind, or like have reasons for people to think of you and be like, oh yeah, Rachael, or like the thing that she does or the thing she's selling. It reminds me of when I first started out on Instagram, my Instagram bio was like designer, letterer, Cheeto lover. That was just like my little quippy thing. I kid you not, the years that was in my bio, even though Cheetos are not an integral part of my work, I don't talk about it much, but it was in my Instagram bio. Yeah. And I do enjoy a Cheeto.
Yeah.
For a while, every conference I went to or workshop I taught, people would bring me Cheetos.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And I remember telling my lettering friend Gemma about this, and she was like, oh, that's amazing. I should put like, I love money in my Instagram bio.
Incredible.
But you give people information about yourself as a way for them to relate to you.
Yeah,
I think that's maybe the most generous framing of a reason why it's okay to integrate your personality and stuff about you that might not be related to your work into your social media. But for some people, they like to be a little more private. Or to Jen's original question, you might just want to do one thing, like a Japanese artisan who like has only ever done one thing their whole life, like the sushi guy, the Jiro Dreams of Sushi guy. It's a trade-off. When you focus so much on one thing and you dedicate so much time, you can become a specialist, an expert, and that might feel really good to you. For chaotic creatives, I think a lot of us are willing to commit to a thing, but we also have lots of other interests as well. And I think those need to be nurtured too. But it really is up to you. I don't think anyone goes in with like a 5-year plan of like, this is going to be I'm going to incorporate this, this, and this. You kind of go off of some intuition too. And
following your fun.
Totally. One of the benefits of, which you and I have both done, one of the benefits of integrating your persona or personality into your work and sharing that as part of your personal brand and your business, whether it's through the copywriting or the color palette, showing your personality off, you do become the umbrella. So even if it's like, I don't know in what world I would be posting gym content. Never say never.
Yeah.
Meg's been posting gym content lately.
I know, and I love it.
Which is amazing.
Yeah. And I'm going to interrupt you because Meg is who came to mind. And I feel like them posting gym content is not what they do for work at all, but the joy that they are experiencing, I literally have thought about messaging them and being like, how did you do your programming? Because it's so interesting and I feel connected. And Meg has also posted about liquid cheese nachos. So like those are things that they don't do as work, but I feel like, oh my God, Meg is my people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that if you're excited about it, that is the only metric you really need to use is like, should I post this? If you're jazzed about it, people get excited by excited people. Like you could, I feel like this is so much of the criticism of, people who have a lot of charisma online is like, you can be like a low-key cult leader by just being jazzed, which is so wild.
Yeah.
And listen, there's no cult leaders who are watching this podcast or listening to this podcast. Trust that like if you are excited about something and it's going to be like art or hobbies, that's enough to get people excited even if they can't really relate to
I
that
think it
thing.
gives people permission to be excited. And I think that our culture teaches us that we have to not get jazzed and that people who are jazzed are obnoxious. And we are fighting against that stigma. We're not chill girls. I mean, at least speaking on my own behalf, I'm not chill. I want to be excited. I'm enthusiastic every time I talk. Like, are you listening to my voice right now? Are you kidding me?
I'm sorry, I have to tell you this. I think people listening will think it's funny too. So every week for like the last 5 years, every Monday, my dad and he'll call me on his way to work and we'll catch up that way. He was talking about, I think he follows the podcast Instagram, and he was like, Rachael looks so cool. And then he was like, she just looks so chill. And I was like, Rachel's not chill. What are you talking about?
I think that's so funny because it's because of the tattoos, right? Like, but you have I don't know. He just doesn't know me. Yeah.
Which actually made me feel better because I was like, oh, my dad clearly doesn't listen to the podcast because he probably doesn't listen to any podcast.
Yeah.
Which is very, very helpful.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, Ed, I'm so chill.
Yeah.
I can't even talk in a chill voice. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think we start off, like when we first got these new mics, I felt us talking a little more like radio hosty. But of course, like as you get into conversation, you're just like,
once one cackle happens, the radio host voice goes away.
Cackles are contagious. The same way, excitement is contagious.
Yeah. But I think, back to your point, I think that people are attracted to enthusiasm. And I think I saw this meme and I shared it today on the internet. Obviously, where else would I share it? Where it was talking about how there's so many neurodivergent people as content creators because the format of social media allows someone who is like maybe so jazzed about rocks to have a platform to only talk about rocks, and that enthusiasm shines through. And then the people who are also jazzed by listening to someone talk about rocks find their community. But in real life, maybe that was a kid who was really excited about a rock and someone was like, ugh, that's
the rock kid.
Yeah. And so, like in-person relationships perhaps shamed that enthusiasm, but now it's getting an opportunity to shine on the internet. And so people are able to connect in that way.
That's really fascinating.
Isn't it lovely?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it said something about like, now you're not rolling your eyes because you can watch in the privacy of your own home without worrying about someone ridiculing you for being excited about this.
Right. Wow. That's a very astute observation.
Absolutely.
And also it leads me to a point I was going to mention, because I think a lot of what we talk about in this podcast bounces between like aspirational and then practical, because I think that's just the world we live in. Mm-hmm. It's what you just said about like the specificity of like someone who loves rocks and like this is their rock Instagram, or this is like the foraging Instagram, or the lettering or the fashion. That is also what the algorithm has historically rewarded, is specificity, which totally makes sense. We were talking about this months ago, but I read Taylor Lawrence's new book, Extremely Online, about like the history of the modern internet and like internet culture, jumping from like blogs to social media platforms to like our current ecosystem. And if you think about go back to like, if anyone's in their 30s, they can probably resonate with this.
Oh my gosh,
the blogging
Design
days.
Sponge.
Yeah, blogging days. It's like, if you think about, we can actually take some tips from like the blogging days, fashion bloggers, design blogs. These blogs had a general category, but you also knew the person writing them a lot of times. They'd share some personal stuff. And if you run a design blog and you're a designy person, people are probably going to be interested in the way you design your home and your clothes too. And you might get questions. If those seem like fun to talk about, you might talk about those too. But there was a general umbrella that allowed people to talk about different facets of style or design or things, food. Mm-hmm. And you deviate from it sometimes, but it usually is under one general theme.
Yeah.
And I think that that's kind of the framework I've adopted for what I share online is like, I typically only share stuff in terms of my creative work and the projects. I usually only do projects, longer term ones at least, that relate to some kind of professional goal because I only have so many hours in a day and I'm trying to keep my business going and grow my business and try to be creatively satiated as well. So you're trying to satisfy all of those at the same time. I do plenty of ceramics projects that I'm not planning on monetizing that don't make it onto Instagram because I can't be bothered to shoot content with that because it's like, it's already a slog to try to finish the ceramics project.
Yeah.
So I think I tend to go with what feels easy to share and then also what projects I can work on longer term, like where the interest sustains. That's what I typically tend to share. But Jen, if you're listening, I have never thought that my work falls under a specific umbrella because I've, especially, 12 years in, I've bounced around a lot. But I think from the outside looking in, things often look a lot more like considered and like tight than they actually are from the person running the thing. I'm just doing things that interest me.
Yeah. And I think that ultimately is the best advice. Like, follow your fun. And if it's an offering that you want to add, just make sure that you're being intentional about how you're talking about it because you are interested in it and you were interested in what you formerly had offered. So there has to be a through line and it might just be your interest. But I think the way that you can create an offering that still, it may be different, but is connected is just how you talk about it.
100%. Actually, something just came to mind because Kristle and I were talking about this. What you mentioned about how you're messaging, like how you talk about play, how you talk about fashion as a way, like it's a modality to self-confidence to express yourself. I think a good example of how to integrate your personality or your interests, let's say you have lots of different interests, lots of different hobbies, you can find a way to tie it back into your core offering or your business if you're using Instagram for marketing. Someone who took my workshop, Kelsey, shout out to Kelsey.
Hi, Kelsey.
Kelsey is a website designer who specifically for photographers. And I started following her after she came to the workshop. A reel popped up that was her and her friends like having a beer at emo night, which like my heart, right?
Oh, love that.
My heart. So good. And again, connection point, I was like, ooh, cut from the same cloth, even though it has nothing to do with our work. And I rarely talk about emo music, but if you've been following me for a long time, you know.
That Taking Back Sunday project.
That's true. That's true. I feel like you can look at me and maybe guess.
Sure.
Same with you.
100%.
Anyone who's like in the creative industry now who has tattoos.
Yeah.
And who still wears Vans sometimes.
Yeah.
Anyways, Kelsey had a video of her and her friends at emo night, but the messaging, because it ties back into her business, her messaging was like being able to enjoy emo night because I know I have like a website that's doing work for me for my business behind the scenes.
Exactly.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's such a great way to like, how can I take my interests and tie the messaging back into my business? That's actually like a 2-for-1 where it's like, I like so many things. I do so many things. Even Meg posting gym content in their stories, if they wanted to, which it doesn't seem like this is the goal, which is great for them too. But if they wanted to tie that into creativity or business or whatever, an offer, they could. We as humans, even though a lot of visual creatives are like, I don't know how to write. Yes, you do.
You do.
I think that you can use
write how you talk. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think you need to, like, I use language like jazzed, pal.
Right? Like you write an Instagram caption like you were texting a friend. That's the best format for sure.
Perfect.
And I think that we are creative and we can figure out a way to tie it in. Like I think in the last episode, I talked about getting into foraging.
Yeah.
It's not specifically cooking related or even it is food related, but it's still a little bit of a stretch. I'm sure I could tie that into something about like using what you have or like seeing things through a new lens.
Yeah.
There's a way to tie it all together. And the hobbies and interests that you have aren't accidental either. Like there's, for some reason, like you might be drawn towards something like mural painting for the same reason you're drawn towards another thing. And you just have to kind of connect the dots between them.
And I think it's just, it's a little bit of a reflection exercise, right?
Yeah.
Like we're recording this episode on July 1st. I just did like a 6-month sort of reflection journaling session for myself yesterday. And I was looking at what I set as personal and professional goals.
Ooh.
And some of them haven't been met halfway through the year, but I've also done a lot of things that I didn't write on that list because I followed the fun and was actually presented with a different opportunity or made an opportunity out of that.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like if you stick with your interest and then you reflect back like, oh, actually that thing that feels like it was a random opportunity that someone gave me, wow, look how aligned it is with all of this other stuff that I've been doing. And I think what Kelsey did, yeah, is something that my creative business coach talks about a lot. In terms of like kickstarting your Instagram to work for you from a marketing perspective. Like the content of the video of the reel doesn't super matter if your message is on point with like what you're trying to do. And I think like you said, like that one was a perfect example of a twofer where you're showing who you are authentically, connecting with your perfect people, but then being like, hey, this is how it ties to my business. So thinking about, just ultimately the messaging, I think a little bit of like brain dumping and mind mapping, as they say, could help you find, the umbrella of your two interests that seem completely unrelated, because they're not, because you are a single person who is interested in all these things. You're the commonality.
Yeah. I also think if anyone is listening to this and feels overwhelmed, one thing I want to say is,
because we talk in circles.
No. I think this is like an existential question for a lot of creatives. Of like, a lot of people don't like to market their work because they're like, how do I do it though? I know how to make the work, but I don't know how to piece it all together. And like our brains want some kind of through line or narrative, and we want it to make sense. I think that the only way, like a step to figuring out that through line and figuring out how to organize things and how you might want to have your different like categories of things you do, is do too much at first and then filter down. You can never filter down if you don't have enough source material.
Yeah.
So if anyone's feeling overwhelmed, post all your stuff for now. Like if you're overthinking it to the point of like, does this make it to the main? Should this go in the stories? Post all of it for now, but make sure to build in some reflection time of like, oh, I've been making a lot of work around these themes. Like we've talked about this before, but one of the best parts of going to design school or any kind of classroom environment was the group discussion of having third parties look at your work and be able to see something that maybe you couldn't see in the moment. Because when you're in it making the work, you're not thinking about these things. All you know is like, I want to make this thing. But take some time to look back at what you've made, and I guarantee you, after a year of making a bunch of stuff, even if you feel like it's kind of haphazard, sharing the haphazard stuff is better than nothing. And I'm saying this as someone who hasn't shared a lot in the last year and is trying to like pep talk herself. So please take that. Just know you're not alone. When you look back, you will likely be able to see some through line, whether it's a topic or a certain color that you're using again and again, or just like a vibe. I don't know what it is, but you can't reflect on nothing. So you may as well make all your stuff and then you can make a decision after that.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, who I'm not making a product, but I'm still feeling like I'm using my creativity when I'm making content, getting dressed, designing my home, whatever. One of the reflection questions that I asked myself was like, is the message that I'm trying to send being received? And by the message, I mean like, are people feeling encouraged to dress for themselves? Are people feeling encouraged to like try a new hobby? And one of the best ways that you can check if it's being received is to ask. I mean, I know I made you do feedback on me last time, but I've also done this on Instagram. Like, I even said like when I was in that transition phase of style to creativity, I said, hey, I've been sharing a lot about play and I think it's resonating. A lot of you have sent me messages, but like I'm asking officially for feedback. Are you able to give me an example of how I've encouraged you to be more creative or play in your life? And people gave me so many beautiful messages, which I still use as testimonials on my sales pages, because that's what I want. I want to make sure that like the message that I'm trying to put across is being received in the way that I'm intending. And you can do that with your work. Like you could post a bunch of stuff for a month, no matter what the content is, and then ask your audience, like, do you sense any themes? I'm doing a reflection.
Yeah.
Like it can be sort of like group feedback.
Yeah. What do you associate with me? What are the things that stand out?
Yeah.
Because like oftentimes too, you can't see it yourself. Like you might be just sharing bits about your life and this, and this, but you never know what's coming across, which is what we've talked about in previous episodes where I mentioned if you're monetizing your creativity, the difference then is you're now in dialogue with an audience and a potential customer base. It doesn't make it better or worse. It's just you do need to be realistic about how you're being received, so then you can tweak your messaging or tweak what you share. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. I think we're probably close to time.
Yeah.
Do we want to try to summarize that? I feel like my summary
Sure. What
in
was your
our
takeaway?
ramblings are basically follow your fun, do the thing for you. Like don't create an offering because someone you admire is, oh, Lauren started offering a mural class. Maybe I need to offer a mural class. Like don't do that unless you are inspired by the mural class yourself. So follow your fun and then try stuff and reflect. And you are your brand, likely, and it's okay that you have multifaceted expressions of your creativity.
Oh, yeah. I also just got a little download from something I used to say all the time that it's so quick, but it's something, this is back from like my just lettering days of like, how do I make a cohesive Instagram page? I have so many interests. One hack, I feel like this is something at the beginning will be like, watch to the end to hear this one crazy hack. It's really not
Listen for 60 minutes and then we'll tell you at the end.
It's really not that wild. And then someone comments on YouTube like, I'll save you the time and puts the hack.
Go to 59:16 and...
Oh my gosh. If you are struggling of like, how do I bring this all together? Choose a consistent aesthetic theme, whether that is a color palette or a certain backdrop that you shoot against for like, incorporate, maybe it's like every single reel that you post, there's something purple in it and that becomes your thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. But as my background, like as a designer, I always tell people if you feel like your topics and stuff are all over the place, pick a color palette. That's your color palette for the year or maybe forever. Like
that's a good idea.
That's a really great way to at least have some cohesion of like, there are some people who are like, this is my color. Like, for example, I mean, to bring her up again, Kelsey from my workshop loves like this like slime green color.
Great.
Like her hair is dyed that color, her nails were that color, her website is that color. And I'm like, that's amazing.
Oh,
that you can
I envy that commitment to one color.
And maybe you switch it up over time, but it's enough to get you started to quell some of the like, is it all consistent? Pick your favorite colors, pick a palette to work within, because then you could bounce, if you're an artist, you can bounce between mediums. It's like murals, design, like lettering, even photography. You could incorporate similar tones or colors in there. And conversely, you could also tighten the theme. So let's say you really love food as a topic. That would then allow you to play around with all the other things. You could use lots of different colors and lots of different styles, but if you can do a little brainstorm and some reflection, like Rachael said, to just narrow in on what's one thing I can commit to, like that I know, like I'm an adult now, I know what I love. Like there's this thing that just keeps coming up for me. It's what I stay up late researching. It just like comes back up as like when I have a day off, this is the thing I do or the thing I gravitate towards in my like wardrobe palette. Just pick a through line. There's probably something there already, like at this point in your work right now that you could just use as a jumping off point.
And I'm going to add one more to that list because I love those. And I think this is top of mind because we've talked about like creativity challenges. I think giving yourself like 30 days or even 2 weeks to focus in on one thing. Like maybe you don't want to pick a color palette or maybe you don't want to pick a theme, but you want to practice your drawing. okay, so have one consistent thing, I guess, for a certain amount of time to build up your, I guess, feelings, learn about your feelings about that particular thing, whether it's slime green or a particular skill that you're trying to learn. If you can commit to something for like 2 weeks,
try it on.
See if you're resistant to it. See if you are really inspired by it.
It's like your self-portrait challenge.
It is. Like, I feel like I learned so much from failing at that, because I thought that because I can draw means that I should. And I think it's like the capitalism mindset of like, capitalize on all your skills. And I don't want to draw. I am never going to be a sketchbook girly in the coffee shop, and that's okay. I would rather focus on the hobbies that I daydream about. So giving yourself a challenge to stick with the color, stick with the theme, or just do a skill for that amount of time gives you a container. We love to talk about containers to see if that's something that you want to expand your umbrella to include.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that ties in so much of what we talk about on this podcast.
Yeah.
Is just, I think in this age too of like scrolling and getting so many different kinds of messages, and like our attention is so fragmented. At least I notice mine being very fragmented. To give something attention for a prolonged period is such a gift, and like is sacred in this day and age.
Yeah.
And I frame it that way, where it's like, yes, I have a lot of interests, but I'm going to spend more time on one at a time and slowly layer them and integrate them. And who knows, like, I started as a lettering artist. I still do plenty of lettering like projects, but maybe 20 years into my career, like I let it go. It's like, maybe it's something that just gets like, it got added to the menu and it got taken off the menu. You're allowed to do that too.
Yeah.
It's still on the menu for me right now, but yeah, I do like, man, we were going to do a wrap up and now we're just recording a whole other segment, but it's related. A lot of times I use food analogies because that's the way my brain works. Think about restaurant menus. Sometimes you go into a place, they serve like one thing, like this is a mac and cheese shop and we only serve mac and cheese. Great. You know what's there, but you're only going to go there when you want mac and cheese. On the other hand, we've all been in like a diner where they have like 8 different sections and like cuisines, or like they've got pasta, but they also have sandwiches and they also have Chinese food somehow. And you don't think of any of those things as they're going to be particularly good per se. So I think while there are some restaurants that are fusion and have a couple different things, oftentimes it's like the 80-20 rule, where even if you're doing a lot of things, 20% of what you're working on is probably lighting you up the most. And you should pay attention to that.
Yeah, I think that that's really important, especially for business. Like, definitely pursue it as a hobby, but you don't have to share every hobby that you do on the internet. Maybe that's what you share in stories, where you're like,
stories is a great place for anything.
This is where I'm like feeling inspired and like getting some creative energy. But like in your true offerings, you're not going to have like, the menu example is perfect, because like immediately I was like, well, I don't really trust that anything's going to be exceptional.
Yeah.
And the mac and cheese shop might not be exceptional either, but you know what you're going in for.
Yeah.
So
again, you're in dialogue with the customer now. And this is only if you're monetizing your stuff. If you're not, post whatever you want.
Post whatever you want.
Be free. Yeah. Be free. If you are not monetizing your creativity, share whatever you want.
Yeah. And I mean, and by sharing, we also mean like on your website, and not necessarily just Instagram, I think, but Instagram is the platform that we both use to grow.
Yeah. This designer that I know, Timothy Goodman, he described it as he would use his Instagram as a like testing ground for what he might want to integrate into his portfolio. It's like just a test zone. And you could think of it one step back too, where maybe your Instagram stories are your first pass of like testing it out, seeing who's watching the stories, getting some feedback, seeing how it feels to share it. And then maybe if it goes well, then you start integrating it into your main feed content. Like, it's whatever makes you feel comfortable. Some people just intuitively know, like, I want to share this. I want the public to see it. Sometimes you're a little more hesitant and you're like, I'll just like dip my toe in. And stories are a great place to do that because it's 24 hours.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I hope, Jen, that we gave you something that you can latch onto.
This is Rachel's first time out of the house in like a week because she was sick.
I've been sick for a week and I haven't seen people, so I just want to chat. I also took my ADHD medication today, which makes me
amazing,
focused on and excited about the thing. Which, I mean, that's not really different from how I am normally, but my brain is fully in this right now.
Great. I love it.
I'm so...
Because we could probably talk for another 2 hours.
I absolutely could because...
And we can, but Kristle needs to go home because I'm not a bad boss.
Yes. Yeah.
I think.
And I want to gab offline about other topics. See, we're not going to put all of the whole menu on the podcast episode.
I mean, the podcast title is a great container. Mm-hmm. It's like... It's broad enough for us to explore, but it's tight enough where the audience, someone who doesn't know us, is like, okay, it's about creativity at the very least.
Yeah. And it might be pretty
and the
chaotic
part lets us off the hook a little bit because it could go off the rails. But in general, our center of gravity is creativity. Rachel, is there anything you want to promote?
I am not prepared to promote anything at this point.
Great.
How about you? Oh, well, we did have to cancel the Chaotic Creative meetup because I got sick. And I'm glad that I didn't.
We didn't pick another date.
Spread any gross junk. We didn't pick another date, but I think what we're probably going to do is have it be a post season 1 meetup, right? Yeah. Like we want to make sure that we have enough time to kind of let you know that it's happening and not just like throw it together haphazardly. Yeah. Sometimes we need that.
Trying to rein in the chaos.
Yeah. Sometimes we need that. And like, have we picked a day? No, but we will. It will happen. And I will not be sick when it does.
Great. Yeah.
How about you? Do you want to...
For the first time ever, I've planned enough where I do have something to promote.
Amazing.
Wow.
Okay. So end of July.
I will have taught my second mural painting workshop, which means the backdrop's going to be different in here, which is so fun. Similar to how you can express yourself through clothes, you can express yourself through art on the walls.
Yeah, you're home.
I had so much fun teaching my first mural painting workshop in June that I decided to host 2 more this summer.
Hell yeah.
I'm hosting one at the end of August 24th and 25th. It's Saturday, Sunday. It's a 2-day like intensive mural painting workshop. It's limited to 10 people because it's here in my studio. But over the course of 2 days, we basically from scratch paint. It'll be a 36-foot long mural in here because it wraps around like the whole wall. And if you're interested in signing up for that, we'll put it in the show notes, or you can just go to homsweethom.com/classes and it'll be there. It might be sold out by the time this comes out, but if it's not, grab your spot.
And if it is, you'll probably have a wait list form that they can fill out.
If it is sold out, I'll have a wait list because I don't have any more planned after that, but it's entirely possible that the second one goes well and I want to keep doing them. So that is what I'm teaching. I'm really excited about it. It's been nice to experiment with teaching in-person workshops again because mural painting is one of those things. I've had an online class for 4 years now where I do walk people through everything from start to finish on how to get into murals and start painting them. It's so tactile that it's fun to do in person. Because oftentimes, too, with an online class, you get the information, but then you have to go out and do the thing, especially if it's project-based. And the workshop for June sold out so quickly that I was like, oh, okay, there's demand for this. Yeah. So it's been nice to take my own advice from this podcast and experiment, try new things. I'm running a deal, if it's still for sale, where I noticed a lot of people for the workshop came in pairs. So like husband and wife, mother, daughter.
Cute.
And so I'm running a deal where if you can find a friend to sign up with you, you get $75 off each.
Amazing.
So it's like fancy dinner is on me if you want to come to the workshop with a friend.
I love that. Oh, that's fantastic. And like what a great opportunity for people to learn from you in person, number one. Cool. But they also get to do the thing and have photos, right?
Yeah. Kristle's here. We take photos of the event so you have some like tangible proof that you painted a mural because no one's going to hire you, most likely, unless they see some proof that you can do it. It's like you went to get a haircut from someone who doesn't have any photos of hair they've had.
Yeah.
It's the trust thing. The no like trust. It's the trust.
Totally.
So I'm really excited about that. Awesome. Hopefully the other ones go well too.
I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
I would promote my Play with Clay workshop, but that will have already passed. So I'm also really excited to teach in person again, and talk about clay and making a weird thing. So yeah,
I wish I could come, but it's the day of my next mural
we're
workshop.
both doing it at the same day on the same day.
Whoa.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
But there will be more, I'm sure.
Totally.
Yeah, really excited. Okay, cool. Well, I'm not going to ask you what you're excited about because we are already way over time. And I'm going to assume your answer is the mural workshops.
It is. I'm also really excited about this mocktail that I made for everybody.
It is really good.
I've still been into mocktails. Kristle and I celebrated our 5-year work anniversary recently. Woo! And the restaurant we went to, She Wolf, had this great carrot, ginger, lime like mocktail. And so I wanted to recreate it. So I made a carrot ginger shrub, which is basically you grate a bunch of carrots and ginger and you soak it in a mixture of sugar and apple cider vinegar for a couple of days in the fridge. It infuses and then you strain out the chunks and you've got this like bright orange carrot gingery liquid. And then you just mix it with a little bit of lime juice and seltzer. And it's this delicious, refreshing, pretty healthy bev.
I love it. It tastes really good.
Thank you.
Yeah. I would like to request a passion fruit ginger mocktail.
I have some passion fruit juice in the fridge right now.
Sick.
I could make you a passion fruit spritz.
There was like my favorite restaurant is Voyager. And because I love oysters. Talked about that. They used to have a passion fruit mocktail. And I am the type of person who tastes something and I'm like, yum, yum, good. I don't know what's in it. So I could not tell you how to recreate it, but I remember that it had passion fruit and ginger. And I'm sure if those two ingredients are in there, I'll like it.
Yeah.
So that's my official request to end the podcast. Maybe Lauren can share her mocktail recipe in the show notes.
Entirely possible.
If you want, maybe it's a secret thing that you're.
No, it's not a secret thing. Not at all.
Okay, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We love to gab. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.